Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi,
Thank you for being here with me today. I really appreciate it. Means
of
a lot.
course. I'm happy to be here. I'm
So
excited.
I'm excited too. I am proud to say you are one of my collectors, and you have the painting behind you for anyone who's watching on my YouTube channel, and that you commissioned me to create a piece in memory of your son, Graham. Why did you choose me to do this for you?
Well, it's funny because you weren't my first choice. I knew this was something that I wanted to do not long after Graham left us. And I had contacted someone that works with ashes that he is well known in the TikTok world. But I just, the thought of trusting, and this guy was very nice, but the thought of trusting a stranger with something so precious held me back.
Yeah.
And so, not long after all that went on, I met you at a retreat in San Diego.
Yeah.
And, I'll never forget you walked in. I think you came in after I got there, and
Yeah.
you were like in all white with like, did you have like a white fedora on or
Yeah, I
something
had a
like
hat.
that?
Yeah, my
Yes,
signature hat.
yes, yes. And I remember, and you had like your sketchbook, and I just thought you just emanated peace. And I remember thinking it was like a little angel, and I was remember thinking, I want to be this woman. I want her peace. I thought, why, she's just, you have this peace that the way you speak, um, the way you communicate, it's very peaceful. And of course, it was only later after we spent some time together hiking um, and doing other things that I realized I had an opportunity that was placed in front of me. And I just prayed that you would agree to do this for me. So once you agreed, um, I was so grateful. I mean, the issue of trust, that was the biggest thing that was holding me back. I didn't have any problem with trust with you. I knew I could trust you. I mean, I knew you would treat Graham's ashes with reverence from start to finish, which you did. I remember you even sent pictures of the little tiny area of honor that you kept him in. And I just wasn't expecting that level of care. And looking back, I know this would never have happened if I wouldn't have trusted anyone else with this type of work.
Oh, I have tears in my eyes right now. That was really
Well,
sweet.
it's true. It's so true. It was really it just it was just placed in my lap. You. So I'm forever grateful.
Thank you. Um, I'm really touched. And tell us more about Graham and who he was. I know who he was, but I want you to tell our viewers and our audience.
Sure. Graham is the oldest of my two boys. Um, I say is, not was, because death doesn't change, um, you know, that he'll always be my child. Um, so Graham, from a very young age, was fiercely independent, but extremely laid back in a strange way. But he was quirky, but that's what made him special. That's what I loved about him. He loved the Lord. His Bible was filled with little bookmarks and highlights of Bible verses. When I went through his phone after he passed away, there were screenshots of Bible verses up until the day he died. So that makes me feel good. But he loved sunsets. He loved the outdoors wherever we went, whether it was the lake, the beach, Alaska, any body of water. He was there. If he could, he would be fishing. He loved to fish. He loved animals. Um, he had such a kind heart, and but he was sensitive. He was a very sensitive soul, and so I know sensitive people, um, sometimes they have a harder time. And
Yes.
he liked helping his friends when they were going through difficult times, but he never wanted to open up and talk to anyone about what he was going through and what was bothering him. And he was a stuffer. Do you know what a stuffer is?
Um,
A stuffer is someone that, they take everything that's bothering them and they stuff it like into
mm,
little drawers or into a backpack. And one day it gets so full that it bursts,
yeah.
you know.
Oh, that must be
And
me as well. Or used to be me. I used to
yes.
keep
Yeah,
things.
and
Yeah.
I
I
know.
can
And he told
relate.
me one time, you know, he just doesn't, he can't open up. He just doesn't talk. And it's not just me he didn't talk to. He had trouble talking to anyone in general, even his therapists. He just had trouble opening up. And so as a teenager, when he started experimenting with alcohol, drugs, he realized that those substances can momentarily ease your anxiety, your depression. It felt good. And, COVID only exacerbated those issues for him.
Yeah. Like with
So,
many, I feel
mm-hmm,
children,
yeah,
teenagers, it really had an effect on
yes.
them.
And, alcohol and marijuana, I know were common in his friend group, but pills were not the norm. But less than a month after he graduated from high school, he spent the night with a friend. The parents were there. The parents allowed the children to drink in their home. I'm not judging the parents. That's a whole nother story. But I'm not judging that family's decision. But around midnight, Graham ordered some oxycodone from a dealer. He paid with the Cash App,
Hmm.
and the dealer delivered the pills. He took two. His friend took two. Um, his friend, it was fine, but Graham never woke up. And the autopsy determined there was no oxycodone in his system, only fentanyl.
Yeah.
And so we lost him.
Yeah. And we've heard of, unfortunately, many stories like
Mm-hmm.
this happening to these young kids. And I have warned my two teenagers as well. And yeah, I I'm sorry for your loss and for what you had to go through with this. And I look at the painting behind you and how you were talking about how he loved the sunset, which I love as well, and the beach and water, which I also love. And I can't get over how aligned we are and
Yes.
how it was just so meant to be. And I mean, it's making me emotional because when I was working on it, it was just such a surreal experience for me about how things work out. And, I've had challenges, as we've talked about with my own teenage son and how we connected in that way. And so I am grateful for you for the gift you have given me and the opportunity. And um, it was just a really beautiful experience. And to share your story and have the courage to do that, I appreciate it. And I feel like more parents need to be aware and to hear these stories so we can prevent things like this happening to others. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Um, so while I was working on his piece, there were times I felt his presence. Like I said, it was the most surreal and touching commission piece I ever worked on. What did it mean for you?
Oh, honestly, I think during that time, it was the only thing that brought me joy during those months. Um, I would share your video updates with my family, my friends. You always added such meaningful and uplifting music to your videos, and I could see you working through those videos. I could see you actively working with the materials on your canvas, and it was strange, but I felt like Graham was being taken care of in a way I can't explain. Um, I never worried about him being across the country in California, which would not be the case if he were here today. um, but I think, grief is such a lonely, lonely road, especially for parents who lose a child. Eventually, your friends stop checking on you. They think life goes on, but you're still stuck in that timeline. You're still stuck on that day. And there were times when the grief was so heavy that I could barely breathe from the weight of it. When people say that, they're not exaggerating. Um, Looking back, I feel like you kind of helped me carry that my grief during that time, and that meant so much to me.
And I remember you mentioned that going through this journey of creating a piece of art in memory of Graham was so healing at you, and that you never thought art could be so healing. What did you mean by that? Because I talk about it
Well,
all the time, but I want to hear from
you do.
you. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, people told me losing a child is the worst thing that can happen to someone, and they're right. Uh, but when you lose someone tragically, there's a lot of darkness that surrounds it. I think you have so many unanswered questions and so much guilt. And I'm sorry,
Okay.
you have to live with that the rest of your life. So, sending you pictures and videos of Graham was oh so hard. But it reminded me that what happened to him was not who he was. And he was much more than that.
Yes.
And the process of having a piece of him, of his heart, um, made in his honor, this painting, helped me to see that going through those pictures. It was hard. And I know for you, you were probably very frustrated with me because it took me such a long time to get through
Mhm.
those. But when I look at that painting, I remember the best of us, being on the beach with my kids and watching the sunset, you know, um, and seeing something beautiful emerge from this horrible event um, was healing for me. It was very healing.
That's beautiful. And how did you feel when you received the piece and saw it for the first time?
Oh, I am ashamed to say that it took me a couple of months to open that box. I just didn't have the courage. I had never seen Graham's ashes. Um, my husband handled everything from start to finish, mailed everything to you, and um, he made sure I did not see them. I don't know why I did not want to see them. Um, maybe I was avoiding reality. But one day, out of the blue, I just said, "Okay, let's open it. It's time. Let's open the box." And I thought we would all just cry and, be so sad. But I thought my younger son would cry. I thought I would cry. I mean, losing your only brother at 16 is tough.
Yeah.
And, but no one cried. We all smiled. The painting was beautiful. It captured Graham's spirit. And now I feel like, although some of Graham's ashes are buried in a cemetery, I don't feel like I have to go to that cemetery to honor him. We feel his presence every day in our home, and it is a positive presence. And that is just, that's a gift.
That's that's really special. I loved hearing that because I didn't hear that part of it yet. I heard you told me about how it was hard for you to open the box. You hadn't opened it yet, so it means a lot to me to hear your guys' reaction after. And do you have any words of wisdom for people out there who may be going through a difficult or challenging time and how art could help them in some way?
Yeah, you know, I don't believe that art heals the brokenhearted. I believe that art helps us to express our emotions, our pain, and that is what is healing.
Yeah.
I wish I could tell you that it was possible to exchange your sorrow, your anxiety, your grief, for this piece of art. It doesn't work that way. It would be nice to wrap up this podcast with a nice little bow and say that, but it I would be lying.
Yeah.
But I think expressing our emotions through art helps ease our pain. It helps make those difficult times more bearable,
Yeah.
more manageable. And I'm grateful to have worked with you, because in this piece of art, you've really captured my grief, but also my joy. And I don't know if you're familiar with Khalil Gibran,
Yes.
but he's one of my favorite
Yeah,
authors.
mine
And
too.
he said joy and sorrow were, I think, inseparable. That what brings us joy is the same things that bring us sorrow. And, you know, to most people, this looks like a painting of a family on a beach watching the sun go down, but it's so much more than that to me.
Ah, my heart. It's beautiful. Um, how do you want Graham to be remembered?
Ah, that's such a hard question to answer. Um, when I think of him, um, I remember what a gentle soul he had, and you could tell by his beautiful smile. And I think the love for his family, for the beach, for fishing, and of course, his beloved dog, Sam, who is still here sitting right next to me. um, I believed he loved the dog more than he loved any of us put together, because most of the photos on his phone were of his dog and not his family. Not long before he died, he told me, he said, I prayed every day for years that Sam would live until I graduated from high school. And I think many will remember Graham because he shared the word of God with them. After he died, one of his friends told me that he was contemplating suicide at one point until Graham started bringing him to youth group. Um, I think for many of Graham's friends in our community, he will be remembered as the wake up call,
Yeah.
that was needed to take fentanyl poisoning seriously. Because before Graham died, there was little talk of fentanyl in our community. We live in a pretty small city in northern Louisiana, and you know, even I believed fentanyl poisoning, that's something that happens to addicts living on the street in big cities. Um, you know, I shouldn't be concerned about that. I've sent my kids to the good schools. I take them to church. They've been involved in soccer practice, but since then, many people have told me that Graham's death really made them take fentanyl seriously.
Yeah.
And how do I want him to be remembered? I want him to be remembered as he's pictured um, in your beautiful piece of art, sitting on that beach with his loved ones, with a smile on his face as he takes in the beauty of the sunset. Um, and I think I like to remember him sitting there on the beach contemplating God and the beauty of nature.
Elizabeth, thank you for being on my podcast. This was one of the most touching ones I've done, and I appreciate your time and your honesty and everything you shared. I know it's not easy, and I really loved having you. And I love having you as a friend, and that we have this bond together now. So thank
Yes, I
you.
do. Oh, I appreciate you more than you know. I will always be grateful for what you've given me.
Thank you.